Hello, my name is John Ferraro. This is my son Isaac Ferraro, my assistant today. I am the principal clarinetist at the Portsmouth Symphony Orchestra, and I'm here to show you my instrument, the clarinet in the family. I'm just going to pick this up and show you a lot of clarinets. Whoa, there they are. So, as you can see, there are many clarinets in the clarinet family, okay? And I'm going to just talk about why there's so many, what they sound like, and a little bit of the history of the clarinet. So, let me get back set up here. All right. So the clarinet is actually one of the youngest members of the orchestra. It's only been around since the early 1700s. It was developed in Nuremberg, Germany by Johann Christoph Denner. And it is derived from a shepherd's instrument, you have number one, Isaac, called the shalom, which looks like this. Kind of looks like a recorder. And if you notice, it's got a giant gapped mouthpiece. It's made out of wood. It's got one key here, and I believe there's a second key on the back. But it really looks like a recorder more than it looks like a clarinet. Okay. The shalom was a very limited, here you can take that back, very limited instrument. It was not used in orchestras at all because it was very out of tune. It could only play one real range, one small range of notes, because everything else would be so out of tune. It could not play another octave of notes. It could only play this one set register. So Denner took this idea of a single reed instrument and created the clarinet. Now the clarinet, the early clarinet, was actually looked kind of like a recorder as well. There were only a few keys. In fact, the early clarinet only had 2 keys as well. And then through time, they added keys to it, and by the late 1700s, it actually started having a home in the orchestra. Haydn used it, was the first major composer to use it, but Mozart really made it famous, especially with his operas and the clarinet quintet and clarinet concerto and trio. And by the 1800s, they started adding more and more keys and creating the modern clarinet and experimenting with different types of wood and things like that. So, I'll take number 2 here. So here's just a little overview of the different types of clarinets. So if you see here, that's the original. 1710. Denner's clarinet. It's got a couple of keys made out of boxwood. And then these are the evolution. The Müller clarinet, add a little bit more keys. The Bamberg clarinet, the Albert, and the Euler clarinet. Now these clarinets, notice it's like 2 trees here. These are the German clarinets. Okay? And around I know everything's backwards, 1839, Closet developed a clarinet using the Böhm system of fingerings that was used on the flute. Here you go. And it changed the way the instrument was played. And to this day, we have 2 schools of clarinet playing. The French, or the Böhm system, and the German, or the Euler/Albert system of clarinets. 99%, maybe 95% of people in the world play the French clarinet. It's what we play here, but it's still in Germany and in Austria and some other Central Eastern European countries, they play the German system clarinet. And there's tons of differences. And number 3, and I got a picture for you. So here is the French clarinet, what most people play. And here's the German clarinet. If you look really quickly, they don't look that different, but now really start to look. Look at these keys here compared to here. They have roller keys, like on a saxophone. There's more covered holes. There's an extra ring here where there's no ring here.
Daddy.
So,
Daddy.
Yes.
Just to tell you, this one's a little blurry.
That's okay. So it looks a little different. The barrel, it's called the barrel, is shorter on the German clarinet. And this has this piece here on the clarinet called the ligature. And this one is a leather ligature. But typically in the German clarinet, they use string to tie the reed onto the mouthpiece. And the reeds are smaller. The bore of the instrument is different. The bore is the tube, the center pipe that the air goes through. So it is a totally different instrument. Different fingerings, different key work. It sounds a little bit different. A lot of people like the sound of the German clarinet better. I actually kind of agree with that. The French system's a little bit easier to play. Not that it's easy, but it was developed because you could play faster passage work easier. But everything you can play in the French clarinet, you can play in the German clarinet. And in Germany today, still in Austria, you pretty much cannot get an orchestral clarinet job if you don't play German system. It will say right in it, Deutsche Clarinet. So you must learn it if you want to work in those countries. Unless you're going to do like freelance stuff. Then you can do French. But for the orchestras, you need the German clarinet. Okay? So that's the family tree, the branch out of the clarinets. And I said, I don't want to get dig too deep into the history. But it's still evolving. We're still adding new keys. They're still adding different materials to make them lighter. So that's just a quick overview of the clarinet. Now, why so many? I have myself E-flat clarinet, a C clarinet, a B-flat clarinet, an A clarinet, and a bass clarinet in B-flat. What does that mean?
I wanted to say.
Okay. What does that all mean? Well, I don't know if any of you watched John Page's Conducting 101 series that's been on, I believe, Sundays and Wednesdays. But he briefly, last week, I think, talked about this whole thing. The clarinet is a transposing instrument. What that means is what is written on the page is not the sound that comes out of the instrument. So when I say clarinet in A, that means when I play a C on my clarinet, the pitch A is what actually comes out of the instrument. So when I play an E-flat clarinet, when I play a C, an E-flat comes out of the instrument. Same thing, on a B-flat clarinet, a B-flat sounds when I play the note C. On a C clarinet, it's in concert pitch, so when I play a C, it is a C. Okay? So I'll show you more about that in a second. Now, why? Why go through the trouble? Okay, well, going back to the early clarinets, they didn't have all this fancy key work. So this is my B-flat clarinet, the normal clarinet everyone starts out on. Okay, so clarinets could only play in certain pitch centers. So basically, if the composer wrote the music, the overall music, in the key of C, or in a key with one flat, major or minor, or one sharp, major or minor, they would score it for the C clarinet, this one. And it's hard to tell on this, but if I pull it back, you can kind of see the difference in size. It's a lot smaller than the B-flat clarinet. Okay? Right, Isaac? Can you hold this? Don't drop it. Okay? When you look at them, they look the same, except for size. That's the great thing. Except for the bass clarinet, the fingerings are the same for all the clarinets. It's what they sound like that's different. Okay?
Almost done.
No.
No. Are you almost done with me holding that clarinet?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, if it was a piece that had more than a flat, it would be on the B-flat clarinet. If it was something that had sharps, they would put it on the A clarinet. Now, so as an orchestral musician, I need to own a B-flat and an A clarinet. Here's my A clarinet. Again, I'll let Isaac hold it in a sec. The A clarinet, I have a mouthpiece in the B-flat, is actually a little longer. You can hold that. Maybe we can show it better this way. Okay, so it's just a little bigger, the A clarinet, which is this one. Okay? Sorry, this one. I even start to get confused. And it's been tradition to still score, even today, when technically you could play all the music for the clarinet on just the B-flat clarinet, for the most part. There are some range issues, but we don't need to get into that right now. But there are color differences. An A clarinet sounds a little darker than the B flat. The C clarinet sounds brighter than the B flat clarinet. And then you get into the auxiliaries. We have this little guy.
I can hold it.
This is the E flat piccolo clarinet. Symphonie Fantastique is probably the most famous E flat clarinet solo of the late classical, early romantic era in music. As you can see, it's just a lot smaller, but the key work is the same. And then we have this. Isaac, I need you to hold the camera for this one.
Oh,
Can you hold this and aim it at the bass player? You may need to stand over there. Then we have this beast. Back up, Isaac. Like,
I
literally.
I
Go
can't
over there.
back up
Go over
anymore.
there. Now, this is my bass clarinet. It keeps going and going and going. So this is in the key of B flat, like the B flat clarinet, but it sounds an octave lower, which means when I play the same fingering, this is C, on the bass clarinet as I would on the B flat soprano clarinet, it's going to sound 8 notes lower. Okay? So this is the bass clarinet. Very important. Mine does go to a low C, which is, Isaac, this way. No. This way. Thank you. Which is the equivalent of a low B flat below the staff on the bass clef, which is lower than the cello. And that sounds like this. So it's a rumbly low note. It's an awesome note. A lot of bass clarinets go to low E flat instead. They're a little shorter. Okay, but I'll show you a little bit more about that in a sec. Okay, Isaac, you can bring me back that, and I'm gonna need your help again. Yeah. So in addition to those are the standard. We have some other clarinets. Of course, we can't have too many. So we have 2 that Mozart made very famous. The Basset horn in F, which is kind of an alto clarinet, goes to low C, but it's in the key of F, like the horn, French horn, which means when you play a C on this instrument, it sounds an F. So the lowest note on this would be the F at the bottom of the bass clef. Yes?
You know a lot about clarinets.
I would hope so. I studied it for a long time. And then this other one is called a Basset clarinet in A. All this is an A clarinet extended to go to a low C. So the first space A on the bass clef. It's not really used a lot, the Basset clarinet. The Mozart clarinet concerto and the quintet were originally written for this instrument. It's great because Basset basically means little bass. So it can play some bass notes. So that's pretty low. First space on the bass clef for a soprano instrument. So the clarinet has a huge range. And even the standard clarinet, which bottoms out like a B flat at a concert D, that D is the 3rd line in the bass clef. So that's a pretty low note. And it goes very high. Very high. So it's got a huge range. Okay? And then there's even more. Can I have the last picture? We have these, which are Contra clarinets. Contra alto, Contra bass, and I believe this is just a different shaped Contra bass. Contra alto is the equivalent of the E flat alto clarinet, which I didn't show you. It's kind of like the Basset horn except in E flat, but this is an octave lower, and then the bass, Contra bass, is an octave lower than the giant bass clarinet that I showed you, still in the key of B flat. So they're not, I've never actually played one. I've played a Contra alto, but I've never played a Contra bass. They're rare, but they have a great sound. You can look it up. And then there's another little clarinet, which I don't have a picture, called an A flat clarinet, which is higher than the E flat, which is about this big.
Wait, do you have like the real one?
No, I don't have an A flat, thank God, because it's obnoxious sounding. There's also one other clarinet, the D clarinet, is a little bit longer than the E flat. It's in between the C and the E flat. Okay? And that is used here and there. Till Eulenspiegel is actually, Till is played by the E flat clarinet, but it's actually originally written for the D clarinet. but everyone just plays unless you own a D on the E flat. Okay? So, what do these instruments all sound like? Well, so the cool thing is, like I said, no matter what clarinet you play, with the exception of bass, but even then it's not that different, the fingerings are essentially the same. What is different is the size of the mouthpiece, the way the instrument feels when you blow into it. Okay, but I'm going to give you a little demonstration here. So I'm going to show you the B-flat clarinet. Now, Isaac, I need your help. I'm going to stand up. We got to convince them that I'm actually doing the same finger, but the sound's going to be different. Okay? Now, watch where my fingers are. Okay? So, this note I'm going to play right now is a C, or a concert B-flat. Watch where my fingers are. Thumb, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to do the same fingering on the A clarinet. And Isaac's going to, right? Same fingering?
Mm-hmm.
Except it's going to sound
different.
one note lower. Because it's the A clarinet. Now, if I want it to sound the same as the B flat clarinet, I have to add this little key and play another note. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the E flat clarinet. Still, thumb, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so no matter what fingering I do, well, note I play, they're the same, but they sound differently, okay, on the instruments. While I have this, just a little bit, I'll show you. This is called the reed, okay, see it? It's made out of what, Isaac, do you remember?
Bamboo?
Kind of like bamboo. It's called reed cane. And what happens when you, and this is the ligature, and what happens when you blow into the mouthpiece, you make the reed go like that, really fast, vibrating against the mouthpiece. The air travels through the instrument, bouncing off the walls, and comes out. However, here's the thing with the clarinet. See all the little holes? The sound comes out the whatever hole is open. So if I play this note, which is B flat, I'm stick to my E flat clarinet here. The sound's going to come out of here in here. So my clarinet is essentially this big. Now, to play the lowest note, the only note, there's two notes that come out of this bottom. E, low E, and B, because it's the same fingering. So I have to cover everything. Isaac, can you put your hand there? Can you feel the air come out? Okay.
I can feel it.
Okay. By adding this little key here, this is a register key, I can make it go higher. Now, here's the thing. Every woodwind instrument is built in octaves. So when you play this fingering on a flute or a saxophone, when you want to play it an octave higher, it's the same fingering. So let's take saxophone, G. This is what a G would be. G, second line on treble clef, or an octave higher, is the same fingering with the octave key. Okay, so it means it plays 8 notes higher, octave. However, the clarinet, because of physics, this is called a closed pipe instrument. What that means is the air goes through and bounces back up. It doesn't kind of go straight out. There's way more to it than that, but it's just a quick thing. So the clarinet, one thing makes it really difficult to learn, and when they were designing it, because of this weird acoustic physics property, it is in what's called twelfths. Meaning, when I play a C, when I hit the register key, it's not going to be a C again, it's going to be a G. Ironically, the same fingered G that's on a saxophone. So C. So all I did, I don't know if we can catch it. So that's a big difference in the instruments, okay? So here's a quick overview of them. So now I'm sure you want to hear what they all sound like. So to get, I don't want this to go too long, but I'm just going to play a little bit on each instrument so you can really hear them. Okay? So I'm going to actually start with the B flat clarinet, which is the most, familiar one, I think, for most people. If you've ever played the clarinet, you can hold that. That's the clarinet you learn first. Okay? And let me just show you the range. I'm going to only do this with the bass clarinet. So here's the lowest note. I skipped the note, but whatever. So that's pretty high and obnoxious. That was a high concert B flat, way above the staff. So I'm just going to play a little melody from a piece by Kovács, who's a Hungarian clarinetist, called Homage to Carl Maria von Weber, who wrote some magnificent clarinet works, a concertino, 2 concertos, quintet. So I'm just going to play a little so you can hear the B flat. Okay, that's the B flat clarinet. So now I'm going to move on to the A, so you can just hear that. So I'm just going to play a famous A clarinet melody. That's okay. It's just the cap. From Peter and the Wolf. Sergei Prokofiev wrote this. The story Peter and the Wolf. And the cat is played by the clarinet, and it's on the A clarinet. It's a little lower, little darker sound. And you have to make the cat plodding along. Okay, so it's the A clarinet. Now I'm going to switch to the C clarinet. And the next 2 examples are actually going to be from the same piece. And I'm just going to show you. So this is Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. And I just want to show you, during a performance, we have to change clarinets. And this one's extreme. It starts clarinet in B flat, or in B because of the German. B means B flat. And then it's kind of old and falling apart. If we look at movement 2, the ball, it says in A or La, so I have to switch to the A clarinet, and sometimes you have to switch in a movement, and they might only give you like a measure, so you kind of have to transpose it until you can do a quick switch. Then back to B flat on movement 3 in B.
Daddy, if you need to get any music on, just send them.
Okay. Movement 4 in C. Ut. Okay, so this is the C clarinet movement. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, just so you can hear the C clarinet. So here is the C clarinet again. It's going to be brighter sounding than the B flat. So that's the C clarinet. Can I see that for a second? And lastly, the E flat. The 5th movement in E flat S. That's the German. E flat, the French. This is the famous dance of, I guess, the Devil's Dance for the E-flat clarinet, where the first clarinet has to play the solo. The E-flat clarinet has a reputation of being obnoxious because it's little and loud and it can be hard to play in tune. And I'm not that much of an E-flat clarinet player, so I'm going to do my best with this. So. Not perfect, but you get the idea of the sound on this thing. And lastly, the bass clarinet. And I'm going to play... Your hand was just in the music. Put that there. Put that there. So, just to show you a quick thing. Reed on E flat. B flat clarinet reeds bigger. Okay, can you hold these two in the camera? I'm just gonna take this off. Now this is a synthetic reed on my bass clarinet, but so it's plastic. But then the bass clarinet reed, big, much bigger than B flat clarinet reed and the E flat clarinet reed. Okay, because it's a bigger instrument, so it needs a bigger reed. All right, so let me grab this thing. This back on, and I played the low C for you. I'm just gonna want you to hear the range of this thing. So here's the low C. And it can go even higher. I don't feel like doing that right now. So I'm gonna play a little bit of the bass clarinet part in Sorcerer's Apprentice by Dukas.
Mm.
Yeah. Couple of mistakes in there, but you can get the gist of it. My son was just dancing like the... And here's another one from it. Okay, and then one more bass clarinet solo from Mahler's First Symphony, the third movement, which is the Frere Jacques movement in minor. So... Okay, so there you go. There was a little bit, half hour or so about the clarinet, the family of the clarinet, a little bit of the history. Last thing in closing, if you play clarinet or you're a student and you want to learn clarinet, suggestions, you can get a teacher, take private lessons, really important. And if you are going to upgrade to anything, like new instrument, new mouthpiece, don't do it alone. Get help, go with your teacher. They will help you. It might cost you a little bit extra, but for their time, but it's worth it. Okay? Practice your scales, listen to a lot of music, especially the Portsmouth Symphony, and just try to have fun with it. You know, it's a great instrument. It's, you know, tricky to play, but it's got some awesome stuff in the clarinet literature. So I hope you found this helpful, enjoyable, going through the clarinet. Thank you. Sure, Isaac wants to say something.
Practice makes progress.
Exactly. Progress, not perfect. There's no perfection. So thank you so much for your time, and stay safe, stay healthy, listen to our musicians play their live performances and tape performances through this tough time, and we miss playing for all of you. So thank you so much. Take care.